Lovely people. How's it going? Everything fine? We are here today on Friday instead of Thursday to read the hour about Harry, like every week, like usual. Tonight we are gonna read 3 chapters, and they are a bit long, so I'll try to start straight away so we don't lose time. And I actually decided to read 3 because next week I'm just gonna read 2, but they are gonna be very, very like nice, like a cliffhanger kind of chapters. So I really care the next week to finish with those. That's why I'm doing 3 tonight that are gonna be quite long. And yeah, like usual, I'll say that they are gonna be uploaded on my website, which is www.scribblingaloud.wordpress.com. So you will find them there. And yeah, we can do, I guess, a little recap of where we have been left, which is in the last 2 chapters. If I'm not wrong, we have seen the pictures. So we know that the pictures are very nice. The Ginny loved them very much. And Harry liked them too. Until he found out the next day that on the magazine, not only the pictures with Ginny have been published, but also some picture of him, which are very embarrassing for him because they're kind of hot. So yeah, he found himself in the center of attention, and at the beginning he didn't understand why, but unexpectedly he found Hermione in the ministry. And basically we found out that she started to work as a freelance, as a mediator for Romania and England. And basically she kind of explained him why there was all this fuss around this picture, but that moment of embarrassment and explanation helped them to chat a bit, and they actually had lunch together. So we left them there having a nice lunch together, and today we are going to read chapter 23, 24, and 25. And in the chapter 23, which is the one coming, there is going to be the interview. Because I've done it already in the Italian one, I just realized how tough it is to read. I'll do my best. I hope you will understand what's going on and who is speaking. I'll try to be clear and maybe a bit slower than the Italian one because, yeah, it has been kind of tough. Okay, I guess we can start. And yeah, we can start with chapter 23, the interview. When Harry got back home, was in a foul mood. The afternoon had been crippling embarrassing. His staff, after the forced hesitation in the morning, had started to joke about it, sniggering and taking the mickey. Carola, an outspoken young auror, had sellotaped the picture of him on the wall beside her desk. "It helps me managing my stress level," she said with a grin when Harry disgruntled asked explanation. "Get a stress ball," Harry barked, ripping it off the wall and throwing it in the closet paper basket. Jenny, on the other side, was short of buoyant. She loved the cover picture. She loved to be on it. She loved everything about it. The magazine was pressed against her breast like a darling child. Harry found her with her head in the kitchen fire, and it was a full hour of "I know" and "Isn't it amazing?" and "I literally love it" and "It will look so well on the wall" before he succeeded in talking to her. "I'm not going to the office tomorrow," he said sulkily. "Harry, don't be childish," Ginny answered, looking longingly at the fireplace, eager to start another conversation full of excited, high-pitched exclamation. You try to be denuded by morbid stares and tell me if you like it. You look awesome. Stop complaining. I actually had the loveliest day at work. Melissa and Rosemary said that they would give their right hand to have you as a husband, and then we went through the interview together, which, by the way, is very flattering. Did you read it? No, I didn't, he replied even more sulkily. But I was there, remember? Yes, but there is the introduction and everything. Really? She said, thrusting the magazine under his nose. As soon as he grabbed it, a sudden realization flashed in his mind. His head jerked in her direction. You knew they were going to publish them. It was in the contract. He yelled outraged. That paper you made me sign on Thursday wasn't the admission form for the boys at Hogwarts. It was the contract. That's why you... But he tailed off, as her head was already in the fire with renewed, I know, and it is beautiful, and no, he's behaving ridiculously, like usual. He darkened, but then shook his head and started to read. My dear readers, this is a very special edition. An edition I'm sure all of you, like me, have been craving for a very long time. After almost 20 years of silence and secrecy, our much admired hero Harry Potter agreed to be interviewed by no less than our magazine. He granted a well bestowed trust in a publication that always showed a marked partiality toward him, showed with ambitious assault and spread of vicious lies. I'm in the comfortable living room of my Richmond villa, staring at the spot where only a few minutes ago Harry Potter and his wife, Ginevra Weasley, were sitting. What? Which dining room of which villa? Richmond? Spread in front of me are the many pictures taken over the past years. Stolen pictures that much revealed of his private life. They reveal nothing by your nosiness. Just beside the new ones, French printed and willingly conceded, make me relieve the salient point of this interview. Many are the topics canvassed, and I can avow that our conversation was so pleasant that they decided to stay well beyond the time fixed for it, accepting courteously a light refreshment my personal house elf prepared especially. What? What refreshment? House elf? Hermione's going to kill me. And her. I can admit that a strong bond of friendship had sprouted from it, and many anecdotes were bestowed to my trustworthy ears that for the sake of these newborn friendships, I'm alas not at liberty to relate. What friendship? What anecdote? Heaven forbids! I'm going to kill her together with Hermione. I must say, I spent my morning in an agitation of spirit scarcely describable. Really? Somehow, I cannot picture it. I wonder why. The mystery concealed behind this icon is great. Who is this much admired, much loved, much longed for man of whom scarcely anything is known? What lies behind the many stolen pictures? What's hidden behind the conjectures and gossips? I was going to find out first person. Only a few people had the pleasure of entertaining with him besides his closest circle. As we all know, he prizes his privacy. It doesn't look like, since everybody's always prying. Only a few can flatter themselves to know the real him, and from today I can include myself as being one of those lucky numbers. So I was very excited, but also mildly fearful. You seem to me the antithesis of fearful. However, if you say so, it must be so. What if it would turn out OT or arrogant. That could easily be a possibility considering what he accomplished in life. Closest friends always told us how it isn't the case, but I was going to experience it first person. An honor not granted to many and only to the very top class members of our lively magical community. I don't even bother to comment. My dear readers, you will be much surprised in discovering that there is not a trace of it. I was struck from the beginning by his affability and politeness. Thank you, ma'am. He left me a strong prepossession toward this person. The real has nothing to envy to the icon. Should I be glad of it? He gave me straight away the idea to be humble and unassuming. Although these remarkable virtues are almost swept away by his person, stolen pictures are incapable to render justice of his features. However, our highly skilled photographers have been able to catch every nuance of them, starting from his olive skin to the dark soft curls falling gently on his forehead, hiding the famous scar that rather added to his person. I'll take your word for it. Down to his mouth, full and prone to laugh, even if, more than once, some sadness could be perceived behind a ready smile when some delicate topics were touched upon. By you, if I remember properly. But what really focalizes his whole person, besides obviously the gorgeous body I had extreme luck to spot when shooting, what the fuck? Are his green eyes of a shade is rarely seen, very expressive. Overall, I can confirm what is already under every eye. He is a very handsome man. Thanks again. Probably because of it, a fame of womanizer built up. Many times, news of his infidelity toward his wife, Ginevra Weasley, have been published by your bloody magazine. But observing them from close, I must say they are hard to believe. It doesn't seem flirty in any way. He behaved toward her lovely companion in a most faithful way. Harry Potter and his wife, Ginevra Weasley. Is it so difficult? Are a charming couple, easygoing and affectionate between each other. Did you read that, Phil Jackass? He is full of attention toward her, and there has been a single moment during the interview in which he didn't show her some sort of attention or sweetness. She is a really lucky woman. I'm luckier. They arrived hand in hand, as if two teenagers, and straight away remarked a complicity not often seen in many couples. Ginevra Weasley, aged 34, looks radiant entering her 7th month. She is gracious and sweet, and I pose to her my first question. That's it? Only 2 sentences dedicated to my lovely Ginny? Bloody hug. I'm sorry. Me. How's life with Harry Potter? GW. She laughs. Normal, I'd say. He's a very good husband. HP. Am I? Didn't you say just 3 days ago that I drive you crazy with my messiness? JW, turning to me. Well, he's quite messy, but despite that, he's a very good husband. We share chores, he cooks dinner sometimes. Me, I cannot imagine Harry Potter without chores, to be honest. HP. Why not? I can do quite well, actually. He says wryly. Me. You married early, didn't you? GW. I was 18 and he 19. Me. Why so early? HP. What was the point of waiting? GW. We loved each other, and we were sure of doing the right thing. Me, turning to GW. When did you fall in love with him? GW. When I was 10, and I saw him for the first time. HP. Come over, I was just a kid, and not a very endearing one at that. GW. Oh, Harry, you were Harry Potter. That was enough to fall in love. HP. And with that sentence goes my hope to have had some natural manly magnetism something. GW. I couldn't believe my luck in being able to see him from close. She speaks to me, ignoring his sentence. I managed to get a picture of him, and I slept with that one under my pillow for ages. HB. Did you? He's clearly amazed. GW. Yes, of course. And I wasn't the only one. I mean, the boy who lived, you were every girl's dream. HP. Was I? GW. She rolls her eyes. Me. And when did you fall in love with her? I asked to HP. HP. I realized when I was 16, but I guess I've always been in love with her. I just didn't know it yet. They smile at each other. Me. There were voices saying that you had a love story with Hermione Granger while in Hogwarts, and many pictures have been taken even later on of the two of you exchanging effusions. HP. Rubbish. She's just a friend, a very good one. She has always been a friend since we were kids, and I consider her one of the best I've ever had. Me. Pass. HP. Present. Me. Speaking about friends, sources informs us that you severed your relationship with another very good friend of your wife's brother and husband of the former, Ronald Weasley. He seems to actually disappear from the magical community. HP. He had to relocate for personal reasons. We had some disputes, but we are still friends. The slight frown on his face induced me to press the point. Me. Despite what happened, he generally know that he was the one responsible for the accident. HP. That's exactly the right word. Accident. He surely didn't intend to do my daughter any harm, and he shouldn't be condemned for it. Me. By Ronald Weasley's assertion, you had an argument just before the tragic event. Could you tell us the reason of it? HP. I don't see why I should. It's a private matter. He replies gruffly. Me. Yeah, and yet it must have been something quite serious to arrive to a magical and physical altercation that brought such a nefarious consequence. HP. Whatever might be the motive or the seriousness of it, it doesn't regard anybody but me and my circle. Me. What can you tell us about this new baby is about to be born? Is it going to be a boy or a girl? I asked to GW. GW. We are obviously very excited, and we decided for a surprise. Only my healer knows. She caresses tenderly her swollen tummy. Me. Any preference? GW. We don't have one. A boy or a girl is going to be equally welcome. HP nods slightly. Me, and yet you have two very fine boys already, growing to be much admired by our younger readers. Would it be rather nice to have a new girl to replace your tragic loss? HP seems upset by my reasonable observation, but as on the verge of speaking, GW, after a quick glance to him, takes the word first. GW. This baby is not a replacement. We don't wish to replace her. A girl would be cherished as much as a boy, no more, no less. Me. I feel I must pose you an impertinent question, which is on many lips since the news of your pregnancy has been disclosed. Many affirm that it shows a lack of sensitivity to try for a child so soon after your loss. What do you think about it? HP. I think that those many should really. GW rests a hand on his knee and he tails off. GW. We didn't look for it. It happened. And it happened in a moment when we desperately needed to be comforted. Our loss has been a great one, more than it can be possibly imagined. This baby saved us. There are no two other ways about it. Me, turning to HP. Your life has been punctuated by difficulties of every kind. Your past alone harbors many losses and struggles. Some have never been fully explained, and many mysteries still surround the defeat of one of the darkest wizards of all times. Would you be willing to unravel some for us? HP, literally. I have not much pleasure to speak about those times. Me, and yet, between the hundreds of questions I would like to ask, there is one that bothered more than one and threw a shadow over the much longed for defeat. The day of the final Hogwarts battle, you were seen by some scurrying about the castle. It is generally known you were looking for something, although none knows what precisely. At your refusal to surrender or face you know who, many innocent people perished by Death Eater's hands. Death that could easily be spared if your research could have been postponed. Families of the deceased accused you of cowardice or, in some other cases, of disdain for other people's lives. How do you respond to it? GW. I think it's a very unfair and unfounded accusation. My husband saved more. GW interjects, upset, but HP stops her gently. HP. It's fine. I'll answer that. He reassured her, turning to me with a somewhat sterner expression. I regret all those deaths very much. They burden my shoulders daily. Some of them were friends, some no, but nevertheless, I'm even too aware they died to grant me some more time for my research, unavoidable, in order to achieve his defeat. I won't explain why because it's confidential. It sounds weak, I know, especially for all those people who lost dear one. But I can affirm with clear conscience that I didn't waste not a second of it, and thanks to them, many others have been saved, amid those myself, and I'm truly grateful for it. More than that, I cannot say, and I'd be glad if you could change topic. As I've previously stated, I have not much pleasure canvassing about the past. Me, of course. It surely must have been challenging and scaring. How did you deal with it? It mustn't have been easy. HP. It hasn't been, but I've been surrounded by good friends in my house who always supported me, and I have an extraordinary wife. She helped me greatly. Without her, I could never have made it. He kisses her. Me. You seems to owe it very much to women in general. Hermione Granger, your wife. HP. It might be true. I've been lucky enough to be surrounded by clever, tough women. I don't think I would be what I am, let alone alive, if I couldn't have counted on Hermione's help when young. And it goes the same for Ginny. Her support year after year has been everything to me. Me, turning to GW, you are lucky in having such a loving husband. How do you deal with his extreme popularity? Are you jealous? GW, I'm actually not of a jealous disposition. Not too much, at least. She adds hurriedly, seeing HP opening his mouth to retort. I cannot say that he leaves me totally indifferent, but I trust him completely. I have no choice anyway, since all that is published about him. It is he, the jealous one. HP. I'm not. GW. She stares at HP. HP. Okay, alright, I'm as jealous as hell. Me. Why, after all these years of silence, have you decided to leave this interview? HP. The situation was starting to get out of hand. It's a desperate attempt to calm the curiosity of the magical community. We are going to have a baby. We are not the first. We are not to be the last. But we need to be left alone. I appreciate greatly people wanting to share with us their enthusiasm and joy at this news, but we prize our privacy and a quiet life. Me, I see. I hope it might help you, and I thank you to have chosen Witch Weekly for your interview. When finished, he threw it on the table. Rubbish. But it could have been worse. At least she had indeed published only what they said without any unwelcome addition, besides the introduction, obviously. Ginny was very happy, and that was all it mattered. He could bear it. And if Ginny wasn't bothered by the fact that she had become the number one sexual fantasy of the whole magical community, so there was no reason he should feel so. He amused himself in one of his own. How many times, in the brief space of the few hours since the publication, his image had been used in illicit reveries? And by whom? Doing a mental list of candidates, he realized straight away it was a dangerous double edged fantasy. It could get very pleasant on one side and extremely disgusting in some others. He casted away the thought unworthy of any further consideration, considering his status. Married slash head of family. Would Ginny approve of this definition? Father of 2 3/4. Used to be 3. Why that must be so hopelessly irreversible. Ginny was, however, still immersed in her world of gay feminine chat, and judging by the undiminished talk speed or enthusiasm, didn't seem she was going to emerge very soon from it. Harry called down the boys for dinner. As soon as they got into the kitchen, they spotted the magazine. Albus grasped it greedily, studying the front cover. James peered from over his shoulder. It's not that bad, actually, Albus affirmed critically, starting to riffle through it. Ginny, despite being deaf to anything else, caught this remark and drew out her head from the fire, beaming. Do you like it, sweetie? Yes, ma'am, it looks okay, he answered, still intent in perusing the magazine in searching of the interview. From the fireplace, Luna's face appeared. Hello, everybody, she said dreamily. Hey, Luna, all right? Harry muttered, concentrated on the stove. Yes, Harry, just chatting with Ginny about the interview on Witch Wobbly. Witch Weekly, Ginny corrected, scandalized. She's very excited, Luna concluded with a beatific smile. I know, Harry mumbled, absent-minded, stirring the content of the pot. The pictures are beautiful. Harry felt a flush creeping and concentrated very hard on serving the meal into dishes. Perhaps just a tiny bit overacted, though. Don't you think? She said pensively. I mean, all the wetness and everything, it surely conveys the message, but I didn't think you were the kind who enjoyed having that kind of pictures taken. Harry, despite feeling the fifth essence of embarrassment and torn whether to ask what message she thought he wanted to convey, snapped. In fact, I don't. I've been tricked into it by Ginny too. I didn't know they were going to be published. What pictures? James asked, looking up. But before anybody could answer, Albus emitted a gasp, followed straight away by a vigorous roar of laughter, making Harry turn magenta in a split second. James, looking back down and seeing what had caused Albus' reaction, snatched the magazine from his hands, looking flabbergasted. What's that? He asked a second later, livid and red at the same time, waving the magazine in Harry's direction. It's none of your business, Harry gibbered sulkily, prying the magazine from him. It is my business. I'm your son, remember? I have to return to Hogwarts in September and my life is already hard enough there without you stripping for a magazine. Hey, what's your tone? Harry warned, feeling wrapped in a bundle of shame. He didn't strip, honey, Ginny tittered, witnessing James and Harry's embarrassed expressions. He's actually partly naked, Luna interjected serenely. Luna, please! Harry blurted out, exasperated. I'm not going back to school, James piped out gruffly, while Albus was sitting down in front of his meal, still sniggering. I want to read the interview, he said, taking a mouthful of food. Ginny, pleased by the interest showed, slipped the magazine from Harry's hand, giving it to him, eyes twinkling. Here you go, sweetie. You are I'm sorry. You are going back, all right? Harry replied to James, sitting likewise, trying to master his flush, thinking that at least James had until September before to have to show his face in public, while he had to go to work the next day. It's up to me to decide what I shall or shan't do, he mumbled, starting to eat. Have you got an idea of what it means for us anytime you end up on a magazine? James asked belligerent. I don't mind, Albus mumbled, still perusing randomly the interview. What were you looking for, Dad? He asked, but then, stopping abruptly. Oh, look, we are mentioned, he said, brightening. Where? James asked, alarmed, flinging on the magazine. Reading the sentence in question grew so scarlet it was almost possible to see steam sprouting from his face. It's true, Albus boomed, referring to the interview. He's always surrounded by girls at school. That's lovely, James, Luna said gleeful. Chosen one yet? He actually has, Ginny exploded giddily. She's called Bianca. She's just a friend, James boomed in a mix of embarrassment and outrage. It's nobody's business. At that point, though, Ginny was eager to start again her conversation with Luna, and she, bowing farewell to everybody, turned the last time to Harry, who was still glowering darkly. If you should feel the need to strip again, come to the Quibbler, though, she said brightly, and before Harry could retort, turned to James, who was likewise glowering even more darkly, peeping at the magazine as if the embodiment of evil, and added, It goes the same for you, James, in a year or two. And that was the end of chapter 23. I hope you like it. I hope you liked my Luna. I really love her. And I hope you like the interview. I think it came out quite well. I mean, reading it, I made a mess in the Italian one, but I think that the experience helped me to read this one properly. So yeah, I hope it was clear enough and it was clear who was speaking and everything. I guess we can carry on straight away with chapter 24, which is called Doesn't Ever Stop To. Harry, after a rather silent meal, outraged on James' side, flustered on Harry's, and amused on Albus, where only Ginny's chatting could be heard, decided to have a walk to Diagon Alley. It was a perfect summer evening, and he felt like having a chat with George to ease the awkwardness, since anyway, with any probability, chances to get any kind of attention from Ginny were close to zero. He collected James and Albus' correspondence to send through Leo and tapped Ginny on the shoulder to inform her of his plan. He could have announced anything, that he was going to try to reach the moon with his broom or spend the night with another woman. She would have just nodded idly as she did, and got out in a tepid July evening. There was still light, and many people were about enjoying the summer air. Pubs were full despite being Monday, and families were having a stroll before to retire for the night. It was nice to walk in London, melting in the crowd without being harassed. However, unsure of how long it was going to last, there was always the risk to meet some witches or wizards. He let his feet decide where to go, just enjoying the pleasure of being alone, and they brought him to Piccadilly Circus. His attention was caught by a big advertisement on a building that made him startle. There was him on it. Well, it wasn't exactly him, but a bloke that could easily pass for him. It was a film advertisement where this guy, wearing a leather jacket, was sitting nonchalantly on a very fancy car. Harry didn't know which one. He had never been too much interested in the article. He had never learned to drive a car. He read the title of the film. It didn't seem too interesting. It took the kids time to time to watch something in cinema. They liked it, and in a measure, he enjoyed them too. But it was always difficult to find one that would agree with everybody for different age and gender. He realized in a flash why the woman in Oxford Street had told to recognize him. Because of the bloody film! He sighed. There was no escape, really. Not anywhere. While keeping walking to diagonally, he considered seriously the idea of moving with all his family in a remote country. Why not? A place very far away where the sun was shining all year round, without an house with the nice terrace in front of a lovely beach, waking up every morning with the sound of the sea instead of noisy horns, nights covered with stars instead of the grey pollution. He could just picture himself sitting on such a terrace in such a night, Ginny close to him, whispering in his ear that the kids were asleep, and offering him to take a walk on the desert sandy beach like many times before during their holidays. A walk that always promised some delights. He was awakened brutally from his reverie by the yelling of two men, rather hammered, having an argument on the pavement in front of a pub. End of the dream, Lonely Island. Back to reality, crappy London. While distracted by the row, a couple accosted him asking for an autograph. A doubt appeared in his mind. Did they think he was himself or the guy of the film? How to tell if they were muggles or not? Hard to say, especially with young people who usually had a knack for muggles' clothes. He opted for the sentence, I think you are mistaking me for somebody else. But they didn't buy. The girl took out from a handbag a quill and a sheet of parchment. Okay, mystery solved. There were no muggles. He signed it quickly, hoping no one spotted, not to have a new Oxford Street experience all over again, and quickened his steps to his destination. Walking briskly through the leaky cauldron, he got into the alley. Shops were already closed, but as in London, people were strolling lazily, until they didn't spot him. All the idleness was gone in a moment. Some kept walking more or less naturally, but with their eyes fixed on him. Some, still less delicate, approached asking questions, requesting autograph, and again the magazine was waved under his nose to be signed. He tried to be gracious, while inside he was cursing like mad. What in the name of God wasn't clear about his aim from the interview? Didn't they read it true, or was just perverseness? Or even worse, outright disdain of other people's wishes? However, he endured it composedly, and once done, bolted for George's door. After a few moments, he opened it, like usual, in his own wear made of grey undershirt and pants. Hey, Harry, what's up? I was having a walk and I thought to pop in for a chat. Can I come in? He glanced quickly behind his shoulder in the flat, wavering a second. I'm sorry. George glanced quickly behind his shoulder in the flat, wavering a second. Just as Harry understood he wasn't quite alone, a female voice resounded in the room. Georgie, I cannot find my skirt. Do you have any idea of where it is? A woman, all ruffled, definitely younger than them, appeared in the room wearing only a large, supposedly George t-shirt. Realizing there was somebody else in there, she stopped on her track and frantically tried to cover her legs, pulling down the t-shirt. It took her a split second, however, to realize who was in the room. Like if a bomb had exploded, her face became crimson. Her eyes widened. I'm sorry, Harry blurted, embarrassed. I'm leaving straight away. No, don't, the girl stammered. You can stay. You can join us. Harry and George looked at each other, bemused, and then at her with the same confusion. Join? What? George, always blunt and never shy, exclaimed, Thanks, Jude, but if I have to participate with a threesome, it must be with two women. I'm adamant on that. Jude passed from crimson to a deep scarlet. And I think your skirt might be under the bed. She ran away to retrieve some clothes, begging Harry not to leave in the meanwhile. Your says, girl? Asked Harry. George nodded. I'm sorry, I didn't want to intrude. It's all right. I promised an introduction anyway, remember? He said, winking. Let's make her happy, and then we can get a walk if you like. Harry told him it wasn't necessary. He didn't want him to lose his evening with the girl just for the sake of a chat. But George insisted. She was about to be going anyway, and I fancy a walk. She got back with her skirt on, a flowery top, and in those few minutes she had even managed to comb her hair and wear some makeup. She outstretched her hand to Harry, glowing with delight. Harry took it as George left them to get dressed, warning her jokingly, Keep in mind he's married to my sister. At which she giggled. Harry was still on the door, feeling a sense of strong awkwardness. He tried to fight it, starting a light chat to kill the time. But her stare was starting to affect his power of finding topics of conversation. George's return, thankfully soon after, eased him out of the uncomfortable situation. Before to part, she asked Harry to sign the magazine. Did every woman in the magical community buy one? And pecked George affectionately, thanking him, surely thinking he had invited him to make her happy. They took a back street to avoid being bothered by people, who by now were starting to disappear in houses and in the leaky cauldron. She seems nice, Harry said. She's all right. Not too silly, not too smart. She's good. Good at what? In the shop, I mean. Ah. Not too bad in bed either. Ah. Don't you think it's a kind of unadvisable to be involved with somebody that works for you? George shrugged. Nah, if there is an understanding on both sides, she knows there isn't anything beside having some fun together, and she agrees with that. She has got a kind of fiancé, I believe, which is very often away for work. That makes things easier. Not for the poor bloke. How old is she? Old enough to know what she's about. I don't think I'm her only plaything anyway, like she's not the only one of mine. A short silence followed while Harry was meditating how different George's life was from his own. Don't you ever wish to settle down? Don't you ever wish to shag more than just one woman for the rest of your life? A good example of a question, which is an answer, a statement, and a bit of a put down at the same time. I guess not. Otherwise, I wouldn't have married. Oh, come on! You married that you were like, what, 18, 19? You don't even know what you want at that age. I cannot believe that at one point you didn't realize to have rushed a bit the whole thing. And mind, I'm very aware I'm speaking about my brother-in-law and I won't expect a truthful answer. Actually, truth to be told, no, he said, shrugging his shoulders. It's true. He had married very young, and thinking back, maybe he had rushed the whole thing, all taken by the anxiety and hustle and ace. I'm sorry. Maybe he had rushed the whole thing, all taken by the anxiety and haste of living as much as possible. But he had never regretted it. He tried to imagine sometimes how his life could have been in case he never married Ginny. Probably, he would have had many women instead of her. Perhaps it might have been fun to have a different one every night. But somehow, in his head, never seemed exciting. It only left him with a sense of emptiness and solitude. I'd never change it. I'm happy as it is, he confessed truthfully. And I'm not saying this because she is your sister, he continued smirking. I just like to have a family. George glanced sideways at him and was silent for a moment. Probably this time it was him who was reflecting on how different their lives were. Daylight was almost gone as they were pacing slowly the faint illuminated back alleys. Diagon Alley wasn't too big, about 3 or 4 blocks, but it was still big enough to allow them a walk. Many wizarding families were living there, preferring to London in general, where it was very difficult to hide all the magical signs, and one had always to be careful while using brooms or oars. He needed a very thorough knowledge of Muggle's style of living not to arouse suspects. Well, I don't want it. Marriage wouldn't suit me. I'm too erratic in my habits and I like it as it is. I don't want any woman bossing me around on what and when I ought to eat, when to go to bed, and when to wake up. That might be because you never met anybody like, well, Ginny. George looked at him with a mild revulsion. Can I just say that it's almost disgusting how smitten you are of my sister? Harry snorted, annoyed in having let slip that affirmation. And anyway, probably no. But it's for the best. Don't you ever feel lonely? George looked in front of him thoughtful. I'm used to being by myself. Do you know? I had to get used to it after. He didn't finish the sentence, but Harry understood, and the atmosphere sobered instantly. He had to get used after Fred. 20 years had passed from his death, but it was still a topic on which nobody spoke freely, scared to reopen old wounds that probably had never healed properly. Harry, as many times before, felt slightly guilty for it, even if aware that nobody blamed that death on him. Doesn't ever stop to, you know, Harry stammered, not finding the right words for that question that united them both in the same uneasiness of feelings, in the grief that, like a heartbeat, was always present. However, he asked, knowing already the answer. Therefore, he wasn't surprised when it came. No, you know very well it doesn't. And that was the end of chapter 24. I've got a bit of a hoarse voice tonight. Okay. So now we can start with the last chapter, which is chapter 25. I'm going to start straight away because it's already almost an hour. And it's not a short chapter. So, let's start. Chapter 25. She's just a friend. The next day, at work, was if possible even worse. The restraint, the shyness, and surprise had commanded the day before was completely gone. He avoided purposely his morning walk, not wanting to confront his groupies. Already normally they were kind of fierce. It was better to let the dust settled before showing up. He felt like he was slowly losing every small pleasure of life. Going to the lift, he spotted the girl managing the weather on his floor. He greeted her, but he got back only a strangled sound as she was so overwhelmed by awe. He thought again longingly of Hermione before her declaration. It was rather hard not to be able to have a rational conversation without being stripped mentally, or even worse, when there was only interest in taking as much advantage from his person as possible. There was his staff, true. They were all decent fellows, but he always tried not to get too close to them. He was the boss, and even if he didn't like it, he was right to maintain distance to be able to perform his role at best. He didn't want to show any favoritism, getting closer to one more than another, and he needed to retain control and discipline over them. It was possible, only not getting too friendly. It was a good department to work in, though. Auror were all young, fit, and with a strong mind. They needed to keep their wits about them because of the danger and unpredictable nature of their job. When somebody was getting too old to bear the physical or mental strain, could decide if to get an early retirement. It was allowed since since it was considered an hazardous profession, or being relocated in another department. The atmosphere was, albeit stressful time to time, overall good. Harry tried to keep it cheerful and chattering. It was already a hard and sometimes depressing job. Therefore, he wanted his staff to feel at ease and relaxed, and as relaxed as it was possible to be, at least when they were in the office. He had completely faith in their capacity, so he left them quite flexible to organize their tasks and days, stepping in only when it was necessary to give assignments or to redistribute or or to redistribute them. He had chosen most of his present colleagues, having him the last word on it, and he was very happy about every choice taken. However, that morning, every shade of embarrassment and deference was gone completely. He found Carola, as the day before, busy in literally wallpapering the wall beside her desk with pictures of the magazine. Harry was so startled he fell immobile for a few seconds, just watching at himself from every picture looking back at him. "What in the name of God are you doing?" he blurted out in the end, indignant. "Oh, hello, Harry," she replied cheerfully, finishing to attach the last picture. "How are you doing? Just so to lighten up the atmosphere. It was getting too grisly with all these ugly faces staring at us." She grimaced, gesticulating toward the images of the dark wizard around the room. "And it has got the double use of getting our men not to neglect their exercise. I showed them to my boyfriend too, so he can get the example," she added, looking airily at the watery picture as she caressed it with a coveting finger. "Nice six-pack." Harry turned scarlet, feeling a tinge in his tummy where she was touching the picture. He bellowed outrage. "I want those bloody pictures down by the end of the morning." "No need to be shy. We all appreciate them very much," she said, sniggering, followed by more sniggering from the others and mumbles of agreement. "By the end of the morning," Harry replied, furious. "I remind you that I heard voice a Death Eater has been spotted in the Mongolian desert. I might decide any time to send somebody there to check if it's true," he said threateningly. The first picture was already being removed. Very good. The power of persuasion. He tried to avoid getting out from his office for the whole morning, but exactly as the day before, the hustle and bustle was part of it and undiminished. The number of letters received was overwhelming, and this time he was sure not to want to read a single one. It was getting necessary to light up a fire despite the heat to dispose of them, and it became mandatory a trip to reception to apologize. Despair was slowly Despair was slowly overcoming him at the umpteenth knock at the door, and he let slip an angry tone in his answer. A bushy head peeked in. Having a rough day? Harry, seeing her, felt almost like crying. He rested his head in desperation on the desk, enjoying the coolness of it against his forehead. Hermione, he just managed to utter in a wail. She slipped in the office, closing the door behind her. Come on, Harry, cheer up. It is not that bad. Harry didn't answer, fighting the impulse to look for a comforting hug from her. Why and why, with all the billions of people in the world, she had to fall in love with him? Why had she to deprive him of her friendship? He was on the verge of asking, but he contained himself, as usual with her nowadays. She leaned against the desk, looking at him. Before the declaration, she would have cursed him. Why, Hermione? Why? Can't you just unlove me? I'm here for business. I need the file regarding Gregorian Lupu. He might be responsible for a leak of an important Romanian government secret. An imperious curse is suspected. With his head still on the desk, he pointed limply to a pile on the floor. She went rummaging in it, muttering reprovingly about the state of his office. For how long you are going to stay at the ministry? He asked under his voice. I'm really coming and going depending on what is needed, she answered, scattering files all over in her research. Harry, this is a mess! How can you find the things you need? Harry frowned at the reproach, but then smiled. It was like being back to old times. Seeing his smile, she laughed, probably as the same thought crossed her mind. And Harry, again, had to restrain himself from telling her how much he missed her and how his life had turned out to be lonely without her company. Do you want to get lunch together? He asked hopefully instead. I don't think it's a good idea. Why? It was nice yesterday. That's why. Harry turned his head from her to the opposite wall, crestfallen, doomed for misery and loneliness. Hermione, seeing this, sighed. With the file in her hand, she leaned against the desk, watching him. Neither of them moved for a while. Then she reached out her then she reached out and stroked gently his curls. It was such a nice sensation, and he needed so much a sympathizing friend, somebody that appreciated him for himself. He turned to look at her, and as their eyes met, she changed expression from sympathetic to frightened, and retrieved hastily her hand to crumple it on her lap. Harry, with a note of disappointment, said, It's all right, Hermione. I don't buy it. It's not of you that I'm afraid. And with this enigmatic answer, she left him to his solitude. The foul mood proceeded well through the evening. Tempers were running high. When during dinner Ginny found out he had lunch with Hermione the previous day, she shot him a filthy look that could just mean one thing. When the kids will be out of earshot, you will hear from me. And once in bed, she had done just that. She reproached him for his behavior, reminding him of his intention to stay away from her. And Harry, being on edge, avoided any discussion not to end up shouting at each other. She just wouldn't get how left out he felt. She was surrounded by friends, family, and colleagues to chat and be as merry as possible. He could count his friends on the fingers of one hand, being comprised in Ted, who was only 20, and George, who was her brother. Was it so hard to understand he had been tempted to look for Hermione's company since she was there? Was he so reproachful? Nothing had happened, like nothing had ever happened. Well, almost nothing considering past behavior. They had just chatted pleasantly, and it had actually been the only positive moment of the last 2 days. And as he was hoping getting home to at least being able to enjoy his family, Ginny was holding a grudge against him. He was too enraged by her failing to understand his situation, and James was giving him the hardest of time. He had asked to be brought to Bianca, but it was difficult to accomplish. James couldn't go by flu powder because there was the risk of them finding out their address. He could drop in by side apparition, but he had never been there, and he needed to have seen the place at least once to be able to do it. They couldn't go with brooms in daylight, and they didn't have a car. Unfortunately, the place wasn't close by as Francis' one had been, otherwise they could have gone by muggle transportation. It was somewhere down on the seaside, and he couldn't take time off only for that. A solution could be found, perhaps with a portkey, but his mind was too occupied by his immediate problems to add another one to the list. Therefore, he had told James, not very patiently to be completely honest, that at the moment it was impossible. A tantrum had succeeded this, with James reminding him that just a few days before he had said he could go, and that he was dying of boredom in the house, and how unfair the old world was, and how he, poor teenager, was the only one suffering, and how mean and totally unreasonable his father was. All this not said word by word, but it was pretty much the gist of it. Ginny hadn't interfered, all taken by conveying a mute reproach, and Harry had to use all his power over himself not to fly off the handle and start to yell. The day concluded with Albus sighing, James' enraged silence, and Ginny's rebuking one. The following day, Harry passed Hermione a couple of times in the corridor, but didn't approach her, barely greeted her, following Ginny's instructions. Hermione's expression had been hurt, making Harry feel there wasn't any possible way to keep the two most important women of his life happy. But being Ginny his forced, he stuck to his distant behavior toward Hermione, hoping she would understand. When he got back home, was in the lowest mood because of it, and he just hoped with all his might to find a pacified Ginny. He wasn't so. She was still cold toward him, and he soon understood why. Albus was reading a magazine at the kitchen table. On it were lying at least 5 different publications. On all of them, there was him. On one, there was a picture taken the night of the Hogwarts battle. The title reported, "The mystery intensified! What was Harry Potter looking for?" On another, there were him and Ginny having a walk on the seaside, her protuberant tummy clearly visible. "The question of the moment, is it going to be a boy or a girl?" But the cover that caught his attention was the one Albus was reading. It was a picture taken from behind. He was kissing Hermione, keeping her by the waist. They were on their way for the minister. The title read, "Is it really only a friendship?" Harry scowled. It was the worst moment ever for a publication of that kind. He peeped at Ginny, who was cooking dinner. She had a set expression and was blatantly ignoring him. "Can I see that?" he asked Albus, who leerily gave it to him. "It is nasty, Dad. Not nice at all." He was full of pictures taken at different times of his life, and in all of those there was him with Hermione in equivocal moments. The article would debate on them, insinuating an affair lasting for years. "It came out this morning," Albus said. "James was very upset." James was surely upset, but Ginny was definitely more so, judging by the strength with which the veggies were being cut by hand with a very sharp knife. You know they are all lies, do you? Harry asked Albus loud enough for Ginny to hear it too. Albus nodded serious. I know. I wrote to Rose. She said the same. Aunt told her. I told James he knows it too, but he was upset nevertheless. Harry thought with dismay about what Hermione must have faced at work like at home with Ron, and how his pointed neglect that day had been surely attributed to the magazine by her. He was a never-ending evil, this popularity that infected everybody had the misfortune to be close to him. Albus, very hesitant, seemed inclined to add something else. But at that moment, James made his appearance and Albus closed his mouth hastily. The dinner turned out to be another silent one. Harry asked them how they had spent their day. Albus stared at his plate. Nothing special, he muttered under his voice. James didn't reply. Harry tried to get a more exhaustive answer from Albus, usually very chatty, but as he raised his eyes to speak, he met James' stern glare and lowered straight away. Homework, he mumbled. Harry heaved a sigh and tried with James, but something in the boy's expression told him that he couldn't expect anything better, but only something worse. And he had seen right. James was livid without any apparent cause, if not his first time staying. An angry outburst poured forth from him when Harry repeated the question, not receiving any answer. What do you think we have done? Nothing, like usual. Harry felt the vein in his temple pulsating. He surely didn't feel up to start a battle with his son, and overall, he wouldn't allow him to stand up to him. Okay, James, I have had enough of your behavior. If you cannot use a pleasant tone, you might as well spend the rest of the evening in your room, he replied stern. Fine, better than here, he muttered, and pushing back his chair roughly, he let his meal unfinished and stormed out of the kitchen. Well done, Ginny said accusingly, once they heard James' door bang. Ginny, just give me a break, would you? He blurted out, tired of this continuous bad mood of which he seemed, with the only fault of existing, the cause. After dinner, he suggested Albus a walk, at which he bashfully refused without any particular reason. Harry was hurt. Usually, at least Albus was always eager to spend some time with him, and he grew afraid too at his refusal. Was the forecoming of his approaching adolescence? He just couldn't stand the thought of two James in the house. One was already more than enough to handle. He disapparated to his wood to have a run, and the greenery helped him in returning in a more sedate mood. Not properly good, but at least not that bad. Ginny was in the bathroom, all busy with her pre-bed beauty routine. Harry leaned against the sink, watching her, smearing every angle of her face with 1,000 different products, all with different properties and to be used in different areas. Once, out of curiosity, I'd asked her to enlighten him of the whole pre-bed routine, and he had been amazed by the complexity of the affair and the perseverance of Ginny following through every single night. He had found out later, asking Hermione, that she followed more or less the same procedure, even if not as strict as Ginny, every night since she was 16. It seemed so much a drag. He just brushed his teeth. He had thanked his lucky star to be born a man. Sometimes he was even bothered by having to shave. He looked at her in silence, while she was deliberately ignoring him. I barely said hello to her today, he said, hoping to make up before go to bed. You can do whatever you want. It doesn't concern me. she answered coldly, not looking back at him, tapping lightly the soft skin under her eyes with a yellowish moisture. The translation of that sentence, as Harry very well knew, was beware of what you do and what you say, because you'll have to answer to me. When she was mad against him, there was always a translation for every sentence said, and by now, Harry was quite good at interpreting it. Ginny, she's just a friend. He tried again conciliatory. Ginny shot him a harsh look. She's not a friend. She probably has never been, and she surely will never be. Those words hurt Harry deeply. Was Ginny right? Has it been really nothing but a lie? Was everything she had done for him counted as nothing against the one feeling that she didn't even indulge in? He felt a friendship to him, and he couldn't accept the fact that it couldn't be so any longer. He didn't want to cast her away completely from his life, and forever. He needed her. Was he a selfish feeling? Was it really better to be both miserable in this forced separation? They were so happy before. He didn't reply, prepared quickly for the night, and when Ginny was ready, it was a long time he was in bed. After the light had been off for already some time, she called softly his name. He pretended to be asleep. And that was the end of chapter 25. I hope you like it. My voice is giving up. I don't know if you noticed. And I guess that's all for tonight. It was a very long live. So, yeah, next week we are going to have 2 chapters. Long chapters, but it's still going to be shorter than tonight. I hope I didn't bore you too long and too much. And yeah, I'm reading those 2 the next week, because the week next to that, I'm not gonna be on. I'm not gonna do any live because I'm away. So yeah. So from the next week, I guess things will start to change a bit. I mean, the mood of the book is start to change a little bit. I like to start light and quite cheerful, and then going downhill. And this is going to happen in this book too. Not as downhill as the first book, but still the mood is gonna change. It's not gonna be that cheerful as it have been up to now. I mean, there are still gonna be like few kind of nice moment, like laughing pieces, but yeah, most of all is going to be a different kind of mood. I don't want to spoil anything anyway. So yeah, I'm just gonna wish you good night, and I hope to see you next week. And thank you to have listened to them. Good night.